The morning air was sharp and cold as Samuel O'Donnell stepped out onto the wooden porch of his small home in Calumet, Michigan. A dusting of snow had settled overnight, and his breath curled in the crisp dawn as he pulled his coat tighter. Winter was coming fast, too fast. Inside, his wife Margaret was fixing breakfast for their two children, Annie and Joseph. Their laughter echoed through the tiny house, warming it better than the meager wood stove ever could. But Samuel couldn't share in their joy, not today. His mind was fixed on the bills stacked high on the kitchen table. The rent was past due. The storekeeper had extended credit again, but even his patience was running thin. The doctor's fee for treating Joseph's cough still lingered unpaid. Samuel was a copper miner, one of thousands working deep beneath the earth in tunnels that ran like veins through the Upper Peninsula. The work was hard, the pay barely enough to scrape by, and accidents were common. Yet he had no choice. He had to work. At the Quincy Mine, the morning shift was already underway. Samuel grabbed his gear and joined the line of men waiting to descend. The cage rattled as it dropped them hundreds of feet underground. Down in the darkness, lanterns flickered against the rock walls, revealing the damp copper-streaked stone they spent their days chipping away. Samuel worked hard, swinging his pickaxe with purpose, but misfortune followed him like a shadow. That morning, a poorly braced timber collapsed, nearly crushing his leg. Later, his lamp sputtered out, forcing him to lose precious minutes finding another. And then, just before the shift ended, his drill bit snapped, earning him a sharp rebuke from the shift boss. As he trudged home that night, exhausted and aching, he felt the weight of failure pressing down. How could he provide for his family when even the mine seemed to be conspiring against him? The next week didn't go any better. He worked harder, determined to prove his worth, but each day brought a new mishap. Tools breaking, a minor cave-in that set back production, even a slip that left him with a nasty bruise along his ribs. His supervisor, Mr. Callahan, watched it all with narrowed eyes. Samuel feared the worst. On Friday evening, after what felt like the longest week of his life, Samuel was summoned to Callahan's office. He removed his hat, his hands rough and calloused as he clenched them nervously. "Samuel," Callahan said, leaning back in his chair, "I've seen the way you work. You show up early, you stay late, and you push through every setback that comes your way." He paused. "A lesser man would have quit by now." Samuel swallowed hard. "I just do what I can, sir. My family depends on it." Callahan nodded. "I know times are tough, and I know you need a break, so I'm giving you one. Starting next week, you'll see a raise on your pay slip." Samuel blinked, unsure if he'd heard right. "Just a bit more," Callahan continued, "but enough to keep food on the table and the landlord off your back. Keep up the hard work, and there may be more in the future." Relief flooded Samuel's chest. He shook Callahan's hand, his grip firm despite the fatigue. That night, as he stepped back onto his porch, he saw his children playing in the dimming light, their laughter as bright as ever. Margaret stood by the door, concern written on her face, until she saw his smile. He pulled her close. "We'll be all right," he whispered. "We'll make it through." For the first time in months, Samuel felt something other than exhaustion. He felt hope. And in the fading light of the Upper Peninsula, under a sky painted in the soft hues of dusk, hope was enough. Thanks for tuning in to Fireside Stories. If you liked what you heard and want even more stories, remember before you leave to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time when we gather around the fire.